She thought the world revolved around her knockoff bag and loud opinions, until one spit turned her life upside down. A family in ruins, a lawsuit at the door, and the internet watching her every move. Karen's fall wasn't just messy, it was a full-blown disaster. But trust me, this is only the beginning. Karen Martin was the kind of person who believed the world owed her. She strutted through life with her nose perpetually in the air, confident that her opinions were the only ones that mattered. At 43, she'd perfected the art of entitlement. Every disagreement was an attack, every slight was personal, and every win, well, that was her birthright. Fairfax, her suburban kingdom, was her playground, and she had no plans to give up her crown anytime soon. That Saturday, though, oh, it was anything but ordinary. The town square buzzed with life. Tourists swarmed the area around the governor's mansion, holding iced lattes in one hand and selfie sticks in the other. Kids begged for snacks. Couples argued over camera angles, and a street musician's saxophone added a jazzy undertone to the chaos. At the mansion's gates stood Malik Johnson, a 29-year-old royal guard. He was a mountain of calm, dressed in a uniform so pristine it could have been straight out of a military recruitment ad. Malik didn't just look the part, he was the part. A decorated Iraq War veteran, he knew a thing or two about standing firm under pressure. And Karen? She was about to test every ounce of his restraint. Karen strutted into the square, her knockoff Louis Vuitton swinging from her arm like a badge of honor. Her poodle, named Princess, of course, yipped at anyone who dared cross her path. But the real trigger? It was Malik. He stood there, tall and stoic, as if her presence didn't matter, and for Karen, being ignored was the ultimate insult. "Excuse me, hey you," she shouted, her voice slicing through the air like a car alarm. Malik didn't flinch, not a twitch, not a glance, nothing. His training was clear, remain still, no matter what. Karen's heels clicked aggressively on the pavement as she closed the distance between them. The crowd started to take notice. Phones were subtly pulled out of pockets, ready to capture whatever chaos was about to unfold. "I'm talking to you, you overpaid mannequin," Karen snapped, jabbing a finger in his direction. Her words dripped with venom, and her volume only grew louder as Malik continued to ignore her. "Do you even speak English? Or are you just here to stand around and look pretty for the tourists?" The murmurs around her grew louder. People weren't just watching, they were judging. Karen, however, thrived on the attention, mistaking their shock for support. Malik, though, remained a fortress. His jaw was set, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Inside, he was counting, slowly, deliberately, because nothing good ever came from reacting. Karen's frustration boiled over. "Oh, so you think you're too good to talk to me, is that it?" she sneered. "You think that uniform makes you special?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few whispered, a few gasped. And then Karen crossed the line. Without warning, she spat. The crowd froze. Time seemed to stand still for a second, as everyone tried to process what they'd just seen. Malik's face remained expressionless, but the tension in his body was undeniable. His fists clenched for a fraction of a second before relaxing, a moment so brief most wouldn't have noticed. Karen, on the other hand, was glowing with satisfaction. She turned to the crowd, a smug grin plastered across her face. "See? Nothing to say now, huh? That's what I thought." The crowd, however, wasn't applauding. Far from it. Murmurs turned to audible gasps, and a few people began yelling at Karen. Phones were recording from every angle, capturing the entire scene in high definition. Karen, oblivious as ever, continued her victory lap, basking in the spotlight she assumed she deserved. She didn't notice the uniformed police officer standing just a few feet away, his hand casually resting on his radio. "Oh, Karen," someone in the crowd muttered under their breath. "You just messed with the wrong guy." Karen strutted into the cafe like she owned the place, her knockoff Louis Vuitton bag swinging at her side. She ordered her usual $1 refill latte with a loud, exaggerated sigh, making sure everyone noticed her. Settling into a corner table, she took a smug sip, reliving her earlier encounter with the royal guard. In her mind, she'd taught him a lesson. But karma had other plans. The cafe's door jingled, and two officers walked in. Officer Briggs, broad and commanding, led the way, with the younger and sharp-eyed Officer Torres right behind him. "Ma'am," Briggs said, his voice steady but firm, "we need to talk." Karen raised an eyebrow, already annoyed. "What is this about?" Briggs exchanged a glance with Torres before replying, "We've received reports you assaulted a royal guard. Is that true?" Karen's voice shot up. "Assault? Are you serious? I didn't lay a finger on anyone." Torres calmly pulled out his phone and played a video. Karen froze. The screen showed her spitting on Malik, with her insults captured in perfect clarity. This is taken out of context," Karen stammered, her face turning red. "He provoked me." Briggs didn't flinch. "By standing still?" he asked. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for harassment and assault. Please stand up." Karen's chair screeched as she jumped to her feet. "This is ridiculous. It was just spit." The cafe fell silent, with every patron staring as the officers cuffed her. Phones captured the moment, and by the time Karen was let out, her meltdown had already started going viral. Within hours, #Karen Spitzengard was trending. News outlets looped the video, and social media exploded with outrage. Comments flooded in. "She really thought this was okay? Spitting on a vet? Disgusting. Malik deserves a medal for staying calm." Meanwhile, Karen's phone blew up with notifications. Her boss's call came first. "Karen, your behavior doesn't align with our company values. You're suspended, effective immediately." Then came the whispers from her neighbors, the side eyes at the grocery store, and the spray-painted "Spit Queen" on her mailbox. Karen tried to convince herself it would all blow over. But as her face dominated memes and talk shows, reality began to sink in. This wasn't going away anytime soon. Karen pulled into her driveway that evening, her knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel. The weight of the day clung to her like a heavy coat, but she was determined to retreat into the safety of her home. At least there she could catch her breath. Or so she thought. Instead, her driveway was blocked by a news van, its bright lights piercing the twilight. Reporters swarmed like bees to honey the second she stepped out of her car, microphones in hand and cameras rolling. "Karen, do you regret your actions? Did you target Malik Johnson because of his race? What do you have to say to the thousands of people calling for your arrest?" The questions came rapid fire, each one hitting like a punch. Karen froze for half a second before shoving past them, muttering, "No comment," as she made her way to the door. The moment she stepped inside, she slammed the door shut and pressed her back against it, her chest heaving. The noise from outside dulled to a faint buzz, but the damage was done. Her sanctuary no longer felt safe. Dropping her bag on the floor, she collapsed onto the couch and reached for her phone. Dozens of missed calls and unread messages stared back at her, most of them from unknown numbers. She hesitated before scrolling through the notifications. Hate mail, threats, memes, people calling her every name under the sun. Karen's hands trembled as she deleted them one by one. But then she noticed a voicemail from a familiar number, her daughter, Olivia. She pressed play, and Olivia's voice came through thick with tears. "Mom, my friends saw the video. They're calling me a racist too. I can't..." The message cut off, leaving Karen staring at her phone in stunned silence. For the first time, Karen felt the weight of what she'd done. Her actions weren't just ruining her life. They were pulling her family down with her. Karen's thoughts were interrupted by a loud, deliberate pounding on the door. Her heart leapt into her throat. The reporters? No. This knock had a different energy, calm, controlled, but impossible to ignore. Peeking through the window, she saw him, Malik Johnson. His uniform was still spotless, his posture as unshakable as ever. Karen's hands shook as she opened the door, trying to muster her usual bravado, but failing miserably. "What do you want?" she snapped, though her voice lacked its usual venom. Malik didn't flinch. He simply handed her a folded piece of paper. "This is a summons. You're being sued for defamation and emotional distress." Karen's jaw dropped as she unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the legal jargon. "You're suing me?" Malik's expression remained steady, his voice calm and measured. "Actions have consequences, Mrs. Martin." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway, clutching the paper like it might bite her. Karen staggered back into the house, her legs barely holding her up. She sank onto the couch, the summons still in her hand. The words blurred as tears welled in her eyes. She thought about Olivia's voicemail, her boss's cold dismissal, the reporters waiting like vultures outside, and Malik's steady, unwavering presence. It was all too much. Her life was spiraling out of control, and for the first time, she couldn't twist the narrative to make herself the victim. Karen stared at the paper in her trembling hands, the realization sinking in. This wasn't just a bad day. Her entire life was unraveling, and there was no one left to blame but herself. How would you have acted in Malik's place? Do you think his response was the right one, or would you have handled it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever faced a similar situation? Let us know your story, and don't forget to like and share this post to keep the conversation going. This story is shared with a purpose: to shed light on important issues and inspire positive change. Your voice matters, and together we can create a better, more understanding world.